In this lesson, we're going to be looking at speciation. So we need to be able to define the term species, describe the work of Lamarck, and explain the formation of a new species. Now, some people don't accept the theory of evolution because it challenges the idea that God made all the animals and plants that live on Earth. So, what's a species? Now, it's any organisms that are able to reproduce together to form fertile offspring. So that means that their offspring are able to go on and reproduce, and that chain continues. So in this case, two lions are able to reproduce together to form fertile offspring. Now, if the offspring are not fertile, then they are not a new species. They would become hybrids. So, for example, a tiger and a lion mating together would form a liger. Now, that liger is not able to be fertile and carry on reproducing. Now, Lamarck proposed an alternative theory to evolution. He argued that changes that an organism gains during its lifetime could be passed to an offspring. So if a characteristic was used a lot by an organism, then it would become more developed and its offspring would inherit the more developed characteristic. So, for example, if a rabbit used its legs a lot to run away from predators, then its legs would get longer. Therefore, the offspring of that rabbit would be born with longer legs. Now, this theory was eventually rejected as there was insufficient evidence to support it. Now, what I want you to do is match up the keywords to the descriptions. Now, some of the keywords match up to more than one definition. Pause the video and have a go. Now, these are the answers that you should have. Speciation is the formation of a new species. Species are organisms that are able to reproduce and form fertile offspring. The fossil record provides evidence for evolution. Darwin published a book called On the Origin of Species in 1859. He also developed the theory of evolution by natural selection. Wallace also helped with that. He helped to develop the theory of evolution by natural selection, and he also worked on the theory of speciation. And mutations are any changes in the DNA base sequence. So what is speciation? It's the formation of a new species. Let's go through an example. So a species of squirrel lives in the area around the Grand Canyon. When the river formed, the canyon separated the two populations. The environmental conditions were different. The north side is higher, therefore it's colder and has more rain and snow. This is how the squirrel populations look now. Pause the video and know any differences between the two squirrel populations. So, squirrel B has a shorter tail. You could also say it's a furry tail. He has smaller feet and it's furrier in general. Have a go at this 6-mark question. So explain how two different species can develop from a common ancestor. Pause the video and have a go. So let's go through the answer. The two populations were separated by a geographical barrier. There is variation in the populations. Different mutations occurred. The environmental conditions were different. Natural selection occurs and the best adapted survive. Different genes were passed down in each population. Eventually, the two populations can outbreed and form fertile offspring. Pause the video and have a go at the following two questions. So even though the squirrel populations are now different species, why do they still look similar? And in another example, why might you get different varieties of a species instead of a new species? So pause the video and have a go. So for the first question, the reason why the squirrel still look similar to each other even though their populations are now different species is because the environments are similar, therefore the adaptations are similar. And the other question, in another example, why might you get different varieties of a species instead of a new species? And that's because, again, the environments are similar, therefore the adaptations are similar.